all these people suck. All the structure needs to be torn down. And we're only going to do that by not listening to people like Abby, even though, like, she has a point.
This is the U.S. intelligence agency, mind control.
Let's go see what Balloon Head here has to say.
Do we really care?
Yeah. Come on.
In Palestine right now it's really nothing new. This week, we've seen Palestinians get kicked out of their homes at gunpoint, tear gassed, shot and killed, arrested for absolutely no reason, and now Gaza is being bombed by the IDF relentlessly. But it's also important to remember that the Palestinians have been experiencing these things on a daily basis for the last 73 years. Is this motherfucker in a
library? Look at the tags on like the books in the
like
background. You got a fucking Dewey Decimal System behind you, my dude? Abby Martin spits about Palestine though. Like she goes off and like she'll talk about how Hamas is awesome as fuck. It's great. This is how she's the best. She's honestly the best propagandist. You can't beat her.
So to understand the true weight behind the spike in Israeli terrorism, we have to first understand the historical context, which is why we're speaking with Abby Martin, a journalist from the Empire Files who's reported extensively from occupied Palestine. Abby, thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
So in the past week or so, the issue of Palestine has basically become the talk of the world. And, you know, there was this whole issue in Sheikh Jarrah, and then we saw the Israeli troops start firing into the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And now, just a week later, Israel is collapsing. They're bombing buildings in Gaza. I mean, can you give us an overview of how we got here?
Absolutely. And when you're looking at corporate media, of course, it always starts with the rockets. And then, of course, the unequivocal declaration that Israel has the right to self-defense.
There's just that first bit.
You absolutely never hear about what precedes such rockets. And you absolutely never hear about the context, the overall analysis of, you know, the historical context that.
Oh, no. I don't want to hear it. We don't need history. You know what? When you start doing history, you know what that means? When somebody goes and they're like, oh, let me tell you about history. And remember, we watched the fucking, when we showed Richie the history guy, he was like going back to justify shit from like the Holocaust in Ukraine. You know? No, we don't need a history lesson. So if she starts doing history, you jump forward, okay? We're talking about 2015 onward. Actually, March of Great Return is the farthest back we go. If she says anything before March of Great Return, fuck off.
Okay.
What about now? What about the apartheid now? How's it going to end?
Which is a neighborhood.
I'm good.
In East Jerusalem.
Yeah, throw chairs at the police.
Mobs of extremist settlers that are armed, mind you, have been expelling
they should kill
Palestinians out of their homes.
What?
I said, yeah, we should kill them. Arm the lions then. Come on. Can we like actually just like, come on. They're not a terrorist group. We can say arm the lions then. They're just the recognized militant group. Israel hasn't declared them a terrorist group. But, you know, we can do like this covert Hamas apology, but we can't fucking talk about actual militant groups that are killing these settlers.
Homes that they've had for
we can say, arm Ukraine.
In this neighborhood, we've all...
You know, we could have been calling to defend the Donbass all these years. It's equally the same. They're not a terrorist group. You can call for their defense the same way you could for a Donbass brigade, and you should.
All seen the videos. They are very harrowing and horrifying. People being thrown out of their homes by force. All of their material objects being thrown violently out of their homes. You have settlers who are obviously from America in the yards of Palestinians saying, if I don't take this home, someone else will. Have you seen this video? So I have to take it.
I haven't, no.
Okay, keep playing. I'm going to pull this video up. You're going to love this video.
This neighborhood has been under assault for quite some time. These settlers have just been waiting for what they deem as a mandate from the Israeli courts that they've been fighting for decades to try to seize and expel these Palestinians from East Jerusalem. Now, I think the important context to this also is that East Jerusalem, just like the West Bank, is under brutal Israeli martial law. Military law forbids Palestinians from protesting, convening in groups of 10 or more, raising a Palestinian flag. All of these things are illegal.
I mean, come on, Abby,
under
we can be
martial
more
law.
brutal than that. The
And so it is
Palestinian
very brutal.
colors themselves are illegal, right?
Seriously?
It's not just it's not just the. You remember? So you know when they shot that journalist, right?
Mm.
You know when they dropped the coffin because the Israeli police started beating the shit out of him?
No.
Okay, so the reason why the Israeli police started beating the shit out of him is because they had Palestinian flags at the funeral. Like I have friends where they'll like covertly wear green underneath. You know, they're
with
like
red and
scarves.
white on the top layer.
Yeah, so specifically they're wearing the Palestinian colors, like, and like just like going through these checkpoints with like armed guards and stuff. Like and like you're not allowed to be in like the Israeli side of shit at night and stuff. It's like it's so fucking racist. Like it's
That's
so much
insane.
worse than separate water fountains, you know?
Yeah.
It's crazy that we can't recognize that. Anyway, you're going to love this video. It's both sad and quite funny, and the reason why it's quite funny is because of this guy's Brooklyn ass accent. Like this is the most New York Jew I have ever seen in my life. Also, I'm pretty sure this is Muhammad al-Kurd's house too. Like it's his family's house, and he's like,
who's that?
He's a poet, but he's one of the famous faces of like Palestinian resistance. Him and his sister are.
Oh, really?
So you'll see him a lot with like pro-Palestinian speeches and stuff. They post a lot of like deceptively edited videos and stuff like that. But I totally support him. You know.
Jacob, you know this is not your house.
Yes, but if I go, you don't go back. So what's the problem? Why are you yelling at me? I didn't do this.
But
it's easy to yell at me, but I didn't do this.
You are stealing my house.
And if I don't steal it, someone else is going to steal it.
No.
Jesus fucking Christ.
It's allowed to steal it, Yammi.
So like I'm pretty sure what happened. Well, see, like if you resist Israel, they punish you by bulldozing or taking your house. So when he's saying, if I leave, you're not getting your house back, so why do you care, right? So they take their houses away and they give them to the settlers. And it's these motherfuckers. Jacob from Brooklyn.
That's fucking insane.
Right?
I don't know how anybody supports
same
Israel.
neighborhood they're talking about. Sheikh Jarrah.
Yeah. I can't believe there's anybody that supports Israel at this point. It's fucking crazy.
Palestinians are protesting, let alone resisting in the ways that we're seeing now. So, of course, Sheikh Jarrah was violently mobbed by these settlers, thousands strong, chanting death to Arabs and burn their memories. Palestinians peacefully resisted these mobs of violent settler attacks. And, of course, soldiers showed up to brutalize them and violently suppress the protests. And, of course, all the Israeli soldiers
and protect the settlers.
stand on the side of the settlers.
Yep.
Now, then you have worshippers, hundreds of worshippers in Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is the third holiest site.
Every year, though.
Yeah. I was going to say, I've heard that name before.
So they literally do the same narrative to each other every year. So like people bring rocks into the mosque because they know the Israeli are going to come into the mosque, right? And then the Israeli photograph the rocks and say, see, they were collecting rocks to throw at people. And also I'm like, who cares? Leave.
Yeah, who gives a fuck?
Like, fuck off.
Insane.
They shoot tear gas through the windows in the mosque every year to break the windows.
That's fuck such cunts.
But you don't understand. They're planning a riot in there.
Of course.
In Islam, stationed in Jerusalem, praying during Ramadan. And then you had IDF soldiers storm the mosque, launch stun grenades and smoke bombs inside, tear gas as well. Inside
this is
the
one
mosque,
of the worst stormings of Al-Aqsa, though.
To the hospital.
Oh, really?
This happened.
This is a war crime.
This is the one that was so bad.
Which year was it?
I mean, this is why like the Lions Den and shit sprung up is because of this shit. Literally, the Lions Den comes like they're funded by Hamas, and then the Jenin brigades are like they were founded by a splinter of PIJ. Neither one of them are jihadist groups. They're all Muslims, but they're not jihadist groups.
Interesting.
They're secular, like nationalist, pro-Palestinian. And I think that's honestly that's the thing is like we don't like the apologia gets to a point where it's like can we point out that they actually like why do we only point out when Hamas fights back?
Yeah, it's very strange.
Why don't like, you know?
That's what
I'm
I was
sure
saying to
she
my
did.
mum
I'm
the other
sure
day.
I'm sure she did though. Like if
Yeah,
you pull
yeah.
up stuff, I'm sure she has stuff talking about how the Lions Brigade is cool as fuck.
But like this is what I said to my mum when the fucking local news was talking about it. I'm like, she's like, oh, look at what the Palestinians are doing. I'm like, it's because you don't see what Israel's doing to them weekly, all the time,
Well, it's
literally all
it's
the
not
time.
specifically this recent event. It wasn't what the Palestinians were doing. It's what Hamas was doing.
Yes, yeah, completely different. And it's
Like,
completely misrepresented by the corporate press.
yeah, some of them weren't even Palestinian. You know that there's Haqqani Network who are involved.
Really.
Daesh is there.
But if you think about it, right, the corporate press, most of the owners of the corporate press are Republicans, generally,
Ding dongs,
right? And they're generally fuckwits. They're generally conservatives, with one of them being an Australian, which is just great.
Israeli press is way more
I've heard,
objective about it.
What do you mean objective?
Oh, like they basically are just full on like pro-Palestinian. Some of these
no shit
outlets. Oh yeah,
interesting.
Did you see the girl who survived the massacre in the one of the communes? She was a survivor. She's like 19, and her whole thing is just like how she's like talking about how she saw like the horror in people's faces who were stabbed to death, people who were burned, and like basically how the government is a failure.
Yeah,
it wasn't even like super pro Palestine stuff. It was more anti BB stuff. And like a lot of like socialists like Hassan and stuff shared it. I'm like, this is literally my DMs. Like these are the type of Israeli I talk to like all the time. Throughout this, Israeli have been messaging me throughout this entire thing. And it's those types of people who lived in these like these. Not all of them were great. I mean, like I keep saying this, we can't pull corpses.
Yes.
It's literally the people who were more advocating for Hamas though who were killed. Not, I spoke wrong. I'm not advocating for Palestine that were killed by Hamas. Nobody is pro Hamas, really. Not even Gaza.
No.
And yeah, and like Hamas isn't. So there's like Hamas is like the political side of Hamas didn't even know the attack was happening, right?
Oh, really?
So the political side of Hamas is totally different than the militant side, right? So this is
they
question.
Don't even talk.
Oh yeah, there is no like real actual control over Gaza. No way. But
that's crazy.
So like the political structure, if it's these different militant commanders doing stuff, and the political structure has nothing to do with it, does it justify Israel going after the political structure? Israel's policy is no. So like you'll see they'll target specific houses.
Yeah.
Not from this recent thing, this recent shit. The amount of bombs they've dropped doesn't make sense. There is no practical way to drop the amount of bombs Israel has had dropped. There's no like realistic tactical, like they're just glassing
reason
place,
for
basically.
it. Yeah.
And but before this, you'll see specific people that are killed in Gaza. Like it's a because they would just do random bombings in Gaza whenever they feel like it.
Yeah.
It's like these different like militant leaders and stuff. And there is Hamas in West Bank too, but there's no solid Palestinian power structure for anyone to climb up.
Yeah.
And actually like represent someone. It's all fractured.
Seems like a problem.
Yeah. How you keep people down. Anyway, maybe Abby will say it better than me.
Right? This is a war crime that what they did was actually tear gas and launch smoke bombs inside of the hospital after the worshippers were sent there. And then you saw harrowing footage of thousands of extremist settlers chanting, burn their memory again, erase their names outside of the burning Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is a mosque that is ancient. It's 100 years older than the Notre Dame Cathedral. All of the historians were in mass uproar when the Notre Dame Cathedral was burning, and there is quite deafening silence over the intentional burning and attacks on this ancient compound.
She really does have
so all of this preceded the rocket attacks. Hamas, the governing force in Gaza, of course, issued a statement saying, we will retaliate. if these attacks continue. And I think Israel made a miscalculation here. I think that they thought that they could violently expel these Palestinians and commit this ethnic cleansing with zero retaliation. And that was a miscalculation on their part because, of course, we saw the rockets fired in response. And Israel, like it always does, issues a wildly disproportionate response, demolishing entire homes with sleeping families inside.
Yep.
With sleeping families inside.
That's it,
And
Abby.
I
Turn
just
the
wanna
emotion
pose
on.
to
Repeat
viewers
it.
just
Hammer
this
it in.
analogy, because I think it's really a stark analogy.
Well,
Imagine
honestly, like,
a
think
mob.
about this. The way she says it, like, first of all,
It's great. I love the way she's saying it. It's really good. It's really
it
effective.
really puts into context today, right? So, with these rockets, you think Israel gives a fuck about their? Oh, Hamas is launching rockets. We can justify just bombing the fuck out of Gaza again. Okay,
Absolutely not.
new check,
Don't give a
America. Right? They don't care. So this is what you have to think. It's literally like you know how I say like civilizations fall from because they start building walls. Textbook scenario here.
Yeah.
They kept pulling people to repress and settle West Bank over for the last, especially like last 3 to 4 years that this has escalated every year where all these new militant groups have launched in West Bank. Hamas has continued to fund this. PIJ's continue to fund this. Iran's, like they all fund it. They have, I mean, look at the guns that these kids have. Literally they're kids too. Like there's 16-year-old kids in these groups. So Hamas, literally, the border was so weak that it might as well not even have been there. They were beyond ineffective. The border guards, right? They were instantly overrun, and then Hamas specialists hit the hard points, the first responder points.
Yeah.
And then they go up into these farming communes and start killing them all. 100% Netanyahu's fault. His government literally, it wasn't him that said this. It was like his one of his like minions. They told him, you gotta chill out. You gotta chill out on the settlements. You're escalating shit. It's gonna get bad. And they're so arrogant that they think that Hamas can't hurt them because they have the Iron Dome, right?
Yeah.
And
gotta love that hubris, don't you?
oh, that's exactly what happened. It's all Bibi's fault. In response to him telling them to stop the settlements, he literally was like, "My entire intelligence apparatus has gone woke."
Very balanced response.
It was literally along the lines of that, like,
That's
you know,
so funny.
like pacifism or like communism or leftism or wokeness, something. It was like one of those words has infiltrated the entire like government. This is where like Marxists will be like disagree because they won't say these people were civilians, right?
Yeah.
Some of them probably were racist and hated Palestinians too.
Probably.
But the people, like, we should be against both, like against the civilians being killed in Gaza and against the civilians who were just killed. It's different in the West Bank. They're actual settlers in the West Bank, and using the word settler, saying everyone's a settler, nobody's a civilian, Hamas rhetoric like that, it downplays the seriousness of what's actually happening in the West Bank.
Yes.
Of armed Muslim extremists storming an ancient synagogue, chanting death to Jews. How do you think the media would respond to that? Or how about this? Imagine, let's say, a mob of Trump supporters that all were armed with weapons in an immigrant community in Texas, storming through the immigrant community, seizing people's homes and occupying them, violently throwing out the immigrants on the street.
They would support that, Abby.
2 years ago? Yeah. There you go. She predicted it.
Predicted Jan 6, but no, they would support that. If they threw immigrants out of their homes in the South, Trump supporters would love.
I think they would.
That's why they also support Israel, even though Trump has like said weird anti-Israel stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know. He's got brain. He's got super brains.
Something's up. Something's wrong.
I can't imagine how liberal media.
God, I hope so. The section is called Israel's Collapse. God, I hope so.
Yeah, would cover such a situation. So it really just shows you the extreme hypocrisy when it comes to media coverage of what's happening in occupied Palestine.
Yeah, you know, and speaking of double standards, I mean, Palestinian activists have been told forever that Israel isn't a racist country, its existence and its history isn't based on the hatred of Arabs, and that it's actually a super progressive country, and that it's the only democracy in the Middle East, so-called.
Look, come on, guys. This is why the music festival being attacked. Like part of the music festival stuff, like Israel uses music, uses tour. You think Israel gives a fuck about gay people? Like really? Do you really think that? Do you really think that?
Absolutely not.
No, it's soft fucking power. Like literally, this is how they get the Republican Party should take notes. This is how you get the youth. You throw the rainbows up. You give them their little music festivals, right?
Yeah.
And so this, like when people were justifying killing these people at the music festival because it was held on the Gaza border,
Mhm.
you know, being like, why are they having a, you know, why are they going to a concert on the Gaza border? Blah 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 blah. Most of these people like would think themselves progressive, and also it's like
Likely.
they're ignorant of what they're actually doing. They don't understand. Not you think like a girl with synthetic dreadlocks has enough self-awareness to understand like she's profiting with Israel's soft power by going to a rave? Let's spit on her corpse because of that. Because she clearly, you know they have self-awareness if they have synthetic dreads. Like, come on, guys. It's fucked up.
That they respect LGBT rights and so on. But this totally clashes with what we're actually seeing and what you're describing just now. And you know, you're also seeing people.
He's literally trying to paint all of Israel like the settlers, right? You see, this is the issue. This is why this is the problem. Is that Abiy doesn't actually want peace in Palestine. Right?
Yeah.
That's not the motivation of the Palestinian Authority and Hamas. Both of them benefit from the hierarchy structure that they have, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a symbiotic relationship between these entities of coexistence through violence and oppression like this, right? So if you actually educated people on how diverse views are, you know, what's actually going on, like where these people stand, where these people stand, you know, you can even start to have people from outside Israel address moderate biases towards Hamas, towards Gaza, where people are just afraid, right? Racism comes a lot from fear, right? So we can start, you know, communicating and addressing these people's fears. You can get more of them to back a solution. But the thing is that Hamas, who funds Abiy, their goal, their charter is so funny. So their charter literally says that they denounce anti-Semitism and then immediately says we need to eradicate like the Jews from Palestine, right? It's not that they hate Jews. They just don't want Jews in their country, right?
Yeah,
Literally, that's literally what their charter says. I'm not kidding, right? So that's the issue, is that Hamas, whether they actually believe this or not, is irrelevant. Like if they believe, because like they believe basically the same thing ISIS and al-Qaeda does, you know, that like they'll be like, you know, the Islamic State, like they want to turn all of Palestine and then all of the world. Then the Republicans fearmonger about this, being like, Hamas is going to come for you, day of jihad, right? All these people suck. All the structure needs to be torn down, and we're only going to do that by not listening to people like Abiy, even though like she has a point. She can open eyes at least, right? So like. Maybe like she has a great video where she just interviews Israeli on the street and they're just talking about how they should kill all the Palestinians, but she's like talking to like settlers, right? They're easy to go. You go talk to the crazy fucking people like Yakub from Brooklyn, entitled Americans and shit. Draft dodgers. Literally the only reason Bibi's in power is because of these fucking draft dodgers.
You gotta love it, don't you?
It's just, you know, the work of some extremists. They're dismissing it as extremism. But it really seems like this sentiment is mainstream in Israel. What do you think all of this that's happened in the last week, what do you think this really says about the political climate in Israel, and how widespread are these views?
I don't know many democracies that actually forbids 5 million residents, that it controls, you know, every aspect of their lives, prevents any sort of democracy for those 5 million residents, 3 million in the West Bank, 2 million in Gaza. So yeah, I wouldn't call Israel democracy, but it is interesting also that they've been able to run with the narrative that they are LGBTQ friendly and that they're this egalitarian place that welcomes, you know, all religions to have a place there. I mean, look, with its foundation, Israel is a settler colonial state. It was founded, of course, in the immediate aftermath of World
history
War II,
lesson.
and right after the foundation,
it was founded by Bolsheviks. Okay, moving on.
Okay, where's the spark? There's no spark here.
Oh,
Double
that's
standards.
a video.
There's
That's
a
her
spark up
talking.
here.
There's a video of her talking to the Israeli on the street, saying they just want to kill all the Arabs.
This one?
Oh, that was Ben Gurion. Keep going. Keep going. Click there. See what's click there. Ben Gurion, right there. That fucking
In order to keep that majority, you need to expel or kill
wildest
the
haircut
indigenous.
you'll ever see.
Oh, really?
Also, Ben Gurion specifically said, the founder of Israel, the Zionist founder of Israel, specifically said, Jewish government within Palestine. So why is it like this?
Good question.
League of Nations and the UN. If it wasn't for those structures needing Israel to function as like a state structure, state apparatus to like exist in their little boys club, there would be a lot of different things. There would still be violence, oppression, but we wouldn't have the same formation of the state that happens. Anyway, the point is that Palestine is what the region is called geography-wise, regardless, right? So when he says the Jewish government within Palestine, he's not talking about taking the whole state. You could consider it, you could take his words in many ways, but I think that there should be a confederal or emirate system. You know, you can have Jerusalem itself, where you have like East and West Jerusalem, and that's like the tiebreaker council. And then you have, and Gaza's a different story. We'll get to them later. But, you know, you have the West Bank government, right? Then you have the Jerusalem government and the Israeli government. Little nations.
Could work.
I mean, that's what everyone says.
This is a apartheid regime. This is a genocidal colonial occupation. And it's just quite fascinating that it's somehow been able to shroud itself in the notion that it's a progressive state and a democracy. It's quite the opposite. And you even see like founders.
You hear what China shrouds
the first prime minister, Ben Gurion. When you look at what his statements were during the foundation of Israel, he says, you know, we must expel the Arabs and take their places. This was an explicitly articulated sentiment.
Ho Chi Minh was literally telling him, like, hey, you should encourage Arab birth rates. Because, like, him and Ho Chi Minh were dogs.
Seriously?
Yeah.
The fuck?
Yeah.
Why would he want to encourage Arab birth rates if his goal is to expel them?
I'm not sure exactly. I just know that, like, Ho Chi Minh was probably kind of sympathetic to what happened. I mean, Ho Chi Minh, like, he killed tons of Nazis, man.
Oh, really?
Yeah, dude, total Nazi killer. But so like he was talking to him, and this is like, you know, this is the formation of the League of Nations and the UN, so they're having these types of meetings there. And Ho offers him an exile government in Vietnam, like an exiled Israeli government in Vietnam, and Ben Gurion responds and says, "No, I'm confident I can make a Zionist state." He might have said Jewish state, but I think he says Zionist state in Palestine. It might have been Jewish state in Palestine. But they've like talked after that. And like he said that like basically like because Ho didn't understand exactly everything about like the culture, right? So like I think Ho said some offensive things to him, like Jewish questiony things. And he
could have loved that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the time, you know?
Yeah,
I mean, most people didn't know the Holocaust happened yet. Like,
that's true. That is very true.
Like, it took a few years.
Leader of Israel, no matter how progressive the United States depicts them. I mean, look at Levi Eshkol during the 1967 war. He said, if we don't give them enough water, maybe their orchards will wither and yellow. And I think that that's a policy that they've obviously continued in place in Gaza, where people do not have clean, potable water and haven't for some time. It's a completely untenable situation. It's unlivable. And it's atrocious that people who call themselves progressive can actually bend over backwards.
Fascist government at this time too. Like Bibi's still in power here. Like he fell from power slightly after this video was made, but it's like, come on. Stop trying to sell them as progressive. Just call them a fascist government, Abby. Come on.
Yeah, how hard is it?
We don't need a history lesson at this point and be like, fascist. The dude is a Holocaust revisionist.
Bibi.
Yeah. He says that Hitler didn't actually want to kill the Jews. He wanted to get rid of them. And then it was a Palestinian who said, no, you have to kill the Jews because they will come here if you get rid of them. And that's why Hitler decided to do the Holocaust. Literally.
Seriously?
Literally, yes.
That's mental.
It's a fundamental belief he has. He is
fucking mental. Epic. Fascism breeds fascism, apparently.
Somehow pretend that you can be progressive, except for the case of Palestine.
I was looking at this poll from Hebrew University in Jerusalem, which surveyed Israeli youth, and it said that 66% of Orthodox youth, 42% of religious youth, and 24% of secular youth, quote unquote, hate Arabs. And 49% of religious youth and 23% of secular Israelis say they want to strip Palestinians of the right to vote.
What kind of university
You guys
was
at the
that?
Empire Files released a video called
You went to a Hebrew university? Like, no shit, you're going to have the worst results there. But even still, only 24 secular people. I mean, if you surveyed America, you'd get a lot higher racism numbers, I think. You know? But we're just talking about the secular people specifically the only 24 of them saying they hate Arabs in, like, you know, a very, very, like, the Hebrew school is like, man, you are real into the Zionist thing, you know, if you're going to
is that the Orthodox, like, curls and shit?
Well, Orthodox can be that. I don't know enough about it, but there's different things. There's different types of Orthodox. Like Libs of TikTok, I think she's an Orthodox Jew. But she's like that's why she doesn't show her arms.
Right?
Yeah, she's in something else. But that's why she doesn't show her arms, because it's like it's modesty, you know, she can't show her shoulders or something.
Okay. Interesting.
Called Everyday Israelis Express Support for Genocide, which the video kind of speaks for itself. I want to play a short clip for viewers. And by the way, these interviews were shot in a park called Tolerance Square in the Jewish quarter of Jerusalem. But here's the clip.
I think also that every Arab that doing a terrorism attack, we have to kill him, and not because he's an Arab, because he's a terrorist. I think you should also kick out the family, because it's
Jesus Christ.
I would say education. I don't think there's any answer to it.
Really?
There's only one way. Like, I would carpet bomb them.
You would carpet bomb them?
It's the only way you could deal with it.
I think that
this is the best one, Miss Girl.
The Arabs make a piguim, and we need to kill the Arabs.
Okay.
We'll talk about this.
And how God punished is the sins by other people. He said he sent the Nazis, and now he sent Palestinians.
And I mean, these clips are almost prophetic in the way they sort of predict what's happening right now in Jerusalem.
They're settlers,
and
man.
What really amazes me is
it kind of reminds me of the Stockholm syndrome of people in China, like the government sycophants. Kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah, it can get like, but you also have to keep in mind that, like, if you go to a lot, I mean, I'm not making excuses here. It's specifically bad with these settlers, but if, in most countries, you'd probably be able to find people to give you genocidal opinions on the street, you know?
Yeah.
But like, a lot of like, you have to think about this. Like, if you're, even if you're like not a like settler type, and you're just like a business owner, and you're if you're close to the West Bank, you probably have a lot of Palestinian employees. So there's that, like the work permit stuff is like kind of exploitive and fucked up, but there is that crossover where you gain a respect for each other in that type of regard. So there are different ways to inject and get rid of the cultural divide, but these settlers are the ones that like enforce it more than anyone else. Yeah, and
because they want their slice.
The state supports them too, because the state supports Zionism, because they believe that the more that they can beat the Palestinians down now, that the inevitable government solution that has to come, that literally the people that were just slaughtered in the South were promised a government solution, and they're dead because they didn't get one, right?
Yeah.
Might be dead anyway, you know, even if the government solution did come. Anyway.
How nonchalant these people are. I mean, you hear people in the US talk about, you know, being liberal Zionists and, you know, Zionism isn't racism, whatever. But everything we see coming out of Israel is just this ultra right-wing nationalism. And it doesn't really seem like anyone stands against it. Or if they do, they're quiet about it, or they're being coerced into being silent. Is there any real opposition to this racism in Israeli society? And
this is like trying to say like every left city is Portland, you know?
Yeah.
It's so
anti-racist and left-wing groups perceived in Israel.
Well, even Bet Salem, which is a human rights organization that simply documents what's going on, is considered an enemy, right? The word leftist is actually a slur in Israeli society.
Oh,
and I think
fuck
people have to wrap
off.
their minds around what even the
There's
notion of liberal Zionism means, right? It's kind of this pink-washed notion
The
of what
state was
Zionism is.
literally founded by Bolsheviks, right? Before the state actually existed, like the first settlements, the first communes there, they were kicked out by the Bolsheviks for being Jewish. So the commies kicked them out, and these people, they were literally they're called social Zionists. And she got me in a history lesson again. There's fucking socialists in Israel, okay? There's a lot of socialists in Israel.
At its core, which is a racist settler colonial state that mandates that millions of people are kept under colonial occupation. Brutal occupation. And then, of course, there's Gaza, 2 million people caged in this open air prison. So the fact that liberal Zionists, they just kind of want to believe that they are progressive, but at the same time, they have to accept the reality of what Israel is. And they have to accept the reality of
you know what a liberal
it's an
Zionist
exclusively Jewish state.
Go on.
Do you know what it is? What would you think?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Do you know what a Zionist is?
It sounds counterintuitive and like what's the word for it? Where the two words together counter each other. What's that word?
Antithesis?
No, it's something specific. Like almost.
Oh, you mean like jumbo shrimp?
Yes.
Like liberal Zionist cancels each other. No, it doesn't actually. Like liberal Zionist is just a Zionist. There's ultra Zionists who are like ultra nationalists and stuff. But Zionism as a philosophy, what do you think it is?
Oh, I know what it is. It's the creation of an Israeli state, and
that's all. That's all. It's
pretty
all
much,
it is that the state of Israel has a right to exist. That's all Zionism means, right? So any person in Israel who doesn't want to be displaced and have the Jewish state destroyed after literally they were kicked out of Europe, weren't able to even go back to their homes after the Holocaust because the Europeans didn't want them. Like, to act like these are like they're obviously there's malicious people. It's a fucking state. Like, no shit. It was a state post World War II. Oh my god, a malicious state post World War II, and it's still malicious now. Like,
it's never happened before.
It's just that these people are refugees in more than they are like settler colonialists. But at the same time, there is settler colonialists in here. Fucking history lesson again. Like, almost immediately when Jewish independence happened, they oppressed Palestinians. The Palestinians actually helped them. Because there's a lot of Islamic code. You give people shelter who are in danger.
Yes,
right?
yes. I know about
that.
Yeah.
They sheltered the rebels who were rebelling against the British, and they got repaid by basically being exiled into Gaza and stuff. It's not like I'm apologizing for the state of Israel here. I'm just saying that, like, what do you want like descendants of slavers to do besides recognize like that everything that they have is because they had slaves? Like, who knows how much they have? Like, can they pay reparations? Like, there's healthy conversations to be had here. And I think if you're like beyond Nelson Mandela, you need to like dial it back, because
that's it.
We have Jews.
What does that mean for the Arabs and the Palestinian population that live there? What's really the reality there is that there's this current of genocidal bloodlust throughout Israeli society. You can see this reflected in poll after poll. You can see it reflected in just the results of the elections, right? The vast majority of Israelis support the Likud government. They support Netanyahu. They support cleansing. They support the ongoing massacres and atrocities carried out in Gaza. They support the ongoing occupation. This is liberal Zionism as well.
Relax. I'm letting her fucking speak.
No, I'm pulling up a wiki to show you the parties.
I know. I'm letting her speak because obviously what she's saying is stupid.
See 80 to 95% support for things like the carpet bombing of Gaza in 2014, for things like the shoot to kill orders during the Great March of Return a couple of years ago in 2018. So these things are quite starkly reflected and quite obviously so. Of course, it's just not reported as such. When we were there in Jerusalem, which is supposed to be this very liberal safe haven for LGBTQ friendly people, there's gay bars, and it pretty much just feels like you're in like somewhere in America, right? A bustling city. Well, we just picked random people from all walks of life. We didn't cherry pick any of these interviews, and we got very honest answers of what people just simply think about the situation. We left it a very open-ended question and let people speak for themselves. What I found interesting about it was what would these people say when the camera isn't on? The fact that they were very, very just kind of leapt into this rhetoric that
Likud is the dominant party. Okay, it has 32 seats out of 120. Does that sound like a majority? Look, the biggest opposition is 24, right? So the only reason the Likud has power is like emergency unity government. They basically, like, he was able to pull all these together to form his coalition to barely stay in power. He literally is like siding with like the draft dodgers and like psychopaths and stuff. Like, it's just silly. I might have a percentage here exactly. It doesn't say. 32 out of 100. It's just lies. It's just lies.
Was it 32 out of 120?
Yeah, for the Likud. And like they literally, like, Likud is like an insult. Like they call them Likudites.
26%.
They call them Likudites and stuff.
Seriously?
Like it's an insult.
That's funny.
The speaker is literally they're both Likud. Speaker and the prime minister, Likud. They suck. There's worse parties, but like he's literally Donald Trump. He needs to go to jail. He's literally only in power to keep himself out of jail right now.
That was nothing short of genocidal, was very alarming. And they knew that they were on camera, right? They knew that they were speaking to a Western audience, and they were completely unabashed with these kind of sociopathic viewpoints about what should be done with Palestinians and Arabs. So the people who didn't say, obliterate them, kill them, bomb them into oblivion, said things like they should all be kicked out, right? Or we should give them a state so then we can actually have a war and drop one big bomb. And
Jesus Christ.
One other person that I found, it was really disturbing. He said, we have the right to hate them. We should have the right to hate them. You had a young 17-year-old girl or so who looked like she was just,
I think everyone has the right to hate somebody. It doesn't,
I agree. It's kind of stupid to be like, you can't hate this person or you can't hate this group of people or whatever. Doesn't make it
we
right,
can just call you a racist. Like, we have the right to just say you're a racist.
We have Jews.
Death to all Arabs. So this is something that is extremely common. I think that in order to be an Israeli living within 48, you need to condone this behavior to a certain extent. You need to be okay. You need to be brainwashed.
Oh my God.
To the point that you actually are okay with the ongoing colonization, right? The ongoing apartheid regime that denies 5 million people their basic human rights. And I think the Israelis that are
Here's the thing. Do you have a majority? Do you have a majority that could end apartheid now? It would be too complicated with the opposition parties. There's still too many racists in the government. But a lot of that can be eliminated if you just make people just not have the fear from racism and stuff. I'm done with this video. Let's do it. Let's do something a little bit less stressful to me before I have a fucking aneurysm.